Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our channel. The date is Monday, the 25th of May, 2026. We are on the 76th Tawheed Halaqah. We are on volume 4 of Kitab Al-Tawheed, the second part, chapter 6, page 255. The title of the chapter is The Nature of Dua. And just starting with the text. In this chapter, we will provide an exhaustive examination of the nature of dua, covering both the supposed dichotomy of dua al-mas'ala, the supplication of request, and the dua al-ibadah, the supplication as it pertains to worship. The Wahhabi sect has fallen into confusion on the matter of dua, just as it has in the matter of sujood, prostration, qiyam, standing, and tawaf, circumambulation. Indeed, its confusion here may be even more severe and reprehensible. Consider the following examples. To begin, it is stated in Usul al-Iman fi Dua al-Kitab al-Sunnah, a work authored by a group of scholars, in quotations, the Najdi clerical establishment, and published by the Ministry of Islamic Affairs, Endowments, Dawah and Guidance, in what is known as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So this is the extract. Whoever supplicates to other than Allah, exalted is He, for something that only Allah has the power to do, is a mushrik and kafir, whether the one being called upon is alive or deceased. However, whoever supplicates to a living person for something they are capable of doing, such as saying, "Oh, so-and-so, feed me," or "Oh, so-and-so, give me water," and the like, there is no blame upon him. But whoever calls upon a deceased or absent person with such a request, then he is a mushrik, because the deceased and the absent cannot perform such acts. The following has been cited in Sharh Thalathat al-Usul by Salih al-Sheikh. The issue established in the books of the people of knowledge, that the saying of the Almighty, and that mosques are Allah's, therefore call not upon anyone with Allah. That's Surah 72:18, includes both types of dua, namely dua al-masala and dua al-ibadah, as has been cited in Sahih Hadith narrated by Nu'man ibn Bashir, that the Prophet ﷺ said dua is worship. A dua huwa al-ibadah. A narration with a similar meaning is narrated from Anas in marfu' form. Dua is the essence or pith of worship. A-dua makhlakh ibadah.
Brain or bone marrow of the worship, sense, the core.
Next, there is a question and answer as it appears in Al-Liqa by Ash-Shahri ibn Uthaymeen. Question: Honorable Sheikh, I kindly ask you to clarify the difference between dua al-masala and dua al-ibadah. Answer: all acts of worship that a person performs are dua al-ibadah. Prayer is dua al-ibadah, charity is dua al-ibadah, fasting is dua al-ibadah, pilgrimage is dua al-ibadah, honoring one's parents is dua al-ibadah, seeking knowledge is dua al-ibadah. Because if you were to ask such a worshipper, what do you intend by this act of worship, he would say, I intend nearness to Allah and to attain his abode of honor. Thus he is indeed one who supplicates da'a through the state of his tongue, lisan al-hal. As for dua al-masala, it is that a person explicitly asks for what he wants, saying, "Oh God, Allah forgive me. Oh Allah have mercy on me. Oh Allah guide me," and the like. This is a distinction. Every worshipper of Allah is a supplicant through the state of his tongue, da'a bil lisan al-hal, and everyone who requests is a supplicant, etc. Forcing the series of citation is what has been outlined in Fatawa Nurullah al-Darb al-Nasiyah. This is a question sent by brother Sulaiman and Muhammad from Hadramaut. The scholars have said that dua is divided into two categories, dua al-ibadah and dua al-mas'alah. What is meant by each of them? He, may Allah have mercy on him, replied, the scholars, may Allah have mercy on them, intend by the division of dua into two categories, namely dua al-mas'ala, supplication of request, and dua al-ibadah, supplication through worship. What Allah has, the Exalted, has indicated in his saying, and your Allah says, call on me and I will answer you. Indeed, those who are too proud to serve me will enter hell humiliated. That's Surah 40:60. Thus, dua al-mas'ala is that one asks Allah the Exalted for one's needs, saying, for example, my Allah, forgive me, have mercy upon me, provide for me, grant me well-being, support, and the like. As for the dua al-ibadah, it is that one worships Allah, blessed and exalted through the legislated acts such as prayers, almsgiving, fasting, pilgrimage, and doing good, since the worshipper in this case intends nothing but the pleasure of Allah and His reward. Thus he is a supplicant to Allah through the state of his speech, of his tongue, lisan al-hal, rather than through the tongue of speech, lisan al-maqal. It should also be noted that some of these acts of worship include within them dua al-masala, as in the prayer, for example. In the prayer, the worshipper says, guide us to the right path. One Surah Fatiha, 4th verse. This is dua al-masala. He also says, may Allah forgive me. This is dua al-masala. He says, pray, peace be upon you, peace, O Prophet, peace be upon us and upon the righteous servants of Allah. And O Allah, send blessings upon Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. O Allah, bless Muhammad, and I seek refuge in Allah from the punishment of hell. All of these are forms of dua al-mas'ala. The difference between the two then is as follows. Dua al-mas'ala consists of directly asking Allah for something, whether it be the attainment of a desired matter or protection from a feared one. Dua al-ibadah, on the other hand, is that one worships Allah, the Exalted, through what He legislated out of hope for His reward and fear of His punishment. This is the meaning intended by the scholars, may Allah have mercy on them, in their classification of dua. The next citation is taken from Ajwibah Mufida
answers.
Adida by Abdul Aziz Raji. Raji. The Sharh is upon a well-known hadith narrated by Ibn Abbas, reported in Bukhari and other collections, in which the Prophet ﷺ would say during times of distress, there is no God but Allah, the all-knowing, the forbearing. There is no God but Allah, the Lord of the magnificent throne. There is no God but Allah, the Lord of the heavens and the earth, the Lord of the noble throne. This is a dua, supplication to be invoked in times of hardship and severe difficulty. This dua is a form of dua al-ibadah, and it includes within it dua al-mas'ala. For the supplicant mentions Allah, praises Him, affirms His oneness, and intends by that Allah relieve his stress and remove from him hardship. Thus it is dua in meaning and also a form of dua al-ibadah, similar to prayer, almsgiving, fasting, and other righteous acts. For the one who performs prayer seeks reward from Allah, and likewise the one who fasts. As for dua al-mas'ala, it refers to when a person verbally calls upon Allah, saying, "Oh Allah, forgive me, oh Allah, have mercy on me," and similar expressions. In fact, all acts of worship performed by a person fall under dua al-mas'ala, because the worshipper is in essence a petitioner, even if not explicitly speaking. Therefore, the statement, La ilaha illallah al-alim al-halim, is the dua of ibadah, because the intention behind it is that Allah relieve the affliction. It is stated in Al-Qawaid Al-Hisan fi Tafsir Al-Quran by Abdurrahman As-Sa'di, his statement, the Exalted, and whoever calls upon another God alongside Allah, one for whom he has no proof, his reckoning is with his Lord. Indeed, the disbelievers will never succeed. That's 123, 117. And likewise, therefore, call not upon anyone with Allah. That's 72:18. And do not call upon another God alongside Allah. That's 28:88. These verses encompass both dua al-mas'ala and dua al-ibadah, just as one who asks something of other than Allah, a matter which none can fulfill except Him, is deemed a mushrik and kafir. Likewise, one who worships alongside Allah another entity is likewise a mushrik and a kafir. It is stated by Salih ibn Abdulaziz al-Sheikh in At-Tamheed li-Sharh Kitab Al-Tawheed. He said, have you then considered what you invoke besides Allah? That's 39:38. Tad'una. That is, you worship. Worship may take the form of dua al-masala, or it may consist of other types of devotional acts. Alternatively, the word tad'una may be understood as encompassing both dua al-mas'ala and dua al-ibadah, since it refers to two distinct forms found among the people of shirk. It is stated in Al-Ilam Bitawdih Nawaqid al-Islam by Abdul Aziz ibn Madruk al-Tarifi, Ashirq al-Akbar, major shirk, is divided into four categories. The first, shirk ad-dawah, namely dua, shirk related to calling, supplication. This refers to a servant invoking other than Allah in the matter that Allah alone is to be invoked, whether in the form of dua al-mas'ala or dua al-ibadah. Whoever supplicates to other than Allah in a manner comparable to supplicating to Allah has committed shirk. Concerning this type of shirk, Allah the Exalted states, so when they embark on a ship, they call upon Allah, being sincere in their devotion to Him, but when He delivers them safely to land, behold, they associate others with Him. That's Surah 29:65. That is, they commit shirk in dua. If the intent behind a supplication is seeking of benefit or repelling of harm, then this constitutes dua al-mas'ala. If the intent is submission, humility, and brokenness before the majesty of Allah, then it is dua al-ibadah in both of its forms. In both of its forms, dua al-masala and dua al-ibadah, supplication is not permitted to be directed to other than Allah. Supplication is among the greatest acts of worship, the most virtuous of devotional acts, and one of the highest forms of nearest qurb to Allah. Allah the Exalted says, and if my servants ask you about me, I am indeed near. I respond to the invocation of the supplicant when he calls upon me. So let them respond to me and believe in me, that they may be rightly guided. And that's Surah Baqarah 186. Now this is analysis. This is your analysis now.
Mhm.
In general, the aforementioned citations should be sufficient. Regretfully, people seem to have nothing more than to repeat and regurgitate this bile. On some occasions, abbreviating it, on others lengthening it with additional examples. The reader shouldn't also be surprised by the plethora of questions that have arisen, which seek to tease out some kind of clarification as to exactly what the difference between dua al-mas'ala and dua al-ibadah actually is. The general public may be forgiven for being confused, even on occasion confounded by this, not to mention the clerical establishment. As for the term ad-dua and ad-da'wa, both deriving from the triliteral root da'ahwa, da'a, yad'u, du'a, an, or da'wa, and their various morphological forms such as da'i or da, the most appropriate method for precisely defining their meaning is through a comprehensive inductive reading of the verses of the Noble Quran. This we have undertaken exhaustively, to the extent that we do not believe any verse on this matter has eluded us. The full listing appears below, though it is already admittedly extensive. We found that the usage of these terms is exclusively confined to the following core meanings. The first meaning to be covered, which is perhaps the original one, relates to simply addressing someone. It includes calling out or exclaiming in the sense of saying, listen, come forth, approach, or join us, without necessarily requesting anything specific from the person being addressed, other than to make him care, catch his attention, or perhaps invite him to attend or witness something. It may also denote summoning for the purpose of attendance or witnessing. This is most often accompanied by a raised voice or other such emphasis. For the first meaning, there are 14 different Quranic verses which are of note, all containing various forms of the verb. ويوم يقولون نادوا شركائي الذين زعمتم فدعوهم فلم يستجيبوا لهم وجعلنا بينهم موبقا. On the day Allah will say, call upon those who you claimed were my partners. They will call them, but they will not answer them. They will call them, but they will not answer. We shall set a deadly gulf between them. And that's Surah Kahf 52, I think, or Surah 18. As per the aforementioned verse, فدعوهم
They called upon them to come.
Call upon those you claimed.
Mhm.
You claimed za'amtum. Here there is the prefix resumption or a particle of fa, al-fa, as first then and the verb form is a third person perfect, masculine plural attached with a third person plural of hum. The phrase fada'uhum here means they called out to them, i.e. they summoned them vocally. The same or closely related meaning is found in the following verse as well. وَقِيلَ ادْعُوا شُرَكَاءَكُمْ فَادْعُوهُمْ فَلَمْ يَسْتَجِيبُوا لَهُمْ وَرَأَوُا الْعَذَابَ لَوْ أَنَّهُمْ كَانُوا يَهْتَدُونَ. It will then be said to them, now call upon those you worshipped as partners, and they will call them, but receive no answer. They will see the suffering and wish they had followed guidance. And that's Surah 28:64. Here, though, there is a second person, masculine, plural, imperative verb at the beginning of the verse, ad'u, call them. That form of the verb also appears in
summon, come here. Yeah.
That form of the verb also appears in several other verses, which are 7:195, 17:56, 34:22. The verse at 7:194 has the wording of ad'uhum, so fad'uhum, call upon them, which has the prefix resumption particle of fa, the second person masculine plural imperative form of the verb, and the third person masculine object pronoun of hum. Other verses in the same theme are 25:13-14, containing da'u, they will call out, and la tad'u, do not call out. The former third person perfect present tense, masculine plural. The latter carrying the negating particle la, followed by the imperfect second person masculine plural. This is majaz, as if they are calling upon destruction and ruin to come and deliver them from the torment they are experiencing. So when you say majaz, this is as in eloquent, this is a rhetorical statement.
Is that way, yeah.
Okay. Other verses of note are also yadu ad-da'i, on the day the summoner will summon them to a horrific event. That's 54:6. First word being the third person masculine singular present tense from the form of the verb, the latter the nominative masculine active participle.
And so just the meaning is summon or invite. Come here and summon someone. And it acts on the subject or on the acted upon directly. There's no preposition. It's say like summon him, not summon to him or summon before of him or something. You know, you just directly summon him. So the verb and the pronoun or the acted upon. Summon Ali, call Ali.
What's the significance of dropping any additional preposition?
There's no addition. If the other one is just another meaning, but the other types will come later.
Okay.
Yeah. It is not transitive. This is transitive directly. The others are not transitive except their preposition.
Next one, next subcategory, wayad'una and wayad.
Like some in English, laugh at him or laugh to him. Laugh to him, you smile to him loudly, or laugh at him, you mock him. Something. At and to are different things there. Huh?
Yeah. Okay. So
the different colors of the word laugh.
Yud'auna and yud'auna. They will be invited to prostrate themselves, but will be prevented from doing so. They were invited to, and they were invited to prostrate themselves when they were safe, but refused. 68, 42, 43. The first word.
That's the first meaning, yeah. Is that the first or still better?
So I'm you're just going to clarify. So the first word containing the conjunction participle of wa, al-waw, followed by the verb in the third person masculine plural passive present tense form, the latter without the conjunction particle.
I mean, we are in the first core meaning.
I guess, yeah. Well, sorry, yeah, this is the first meaning. This whole chapter is still all the first meaning.
The call first meaning. What's the change? Invite someone, call on to come, something, come on, something like that. Okay.
Yeah, so we've only got about another page before we go to the second meaning.
So this has worship or non-worship or request or non-request. It's just requesting someone to come, requesting for being present. Come here. That's it. Essentially. Okay.
Next subcategory, next explanation. Ad-da'iyah. On that day, people will follow the summoner from whom there is no escape. That's 2108. The noun being the accusative masculine active participle. Next subcategory, da'wahum. And that call of theirs did not cease until we made them burnt out stubble, 2115. Also, as per the verse 7:5 and 10:10. Hence, here the nominative accusative masculine noun is joined with the third person masculine plural possessive pronoun of whom. So that's where the pronoun's been added. Da'utukum, I had no power over you except, and this is the bit, da'utukum, to call,
Except
invite you.
Except I invited you. The devil telling the people, I have no power. You just invited you and you accepted.
And you responded to my call, referring to what Shaitan will say on the day of judgment. Here, the verb is in the first person singular past tense with the masculine plural form of kum. Okay, so also expressed in the general meaning as they appear in over 26 additional verses, examples of which are وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَن تقوم السماء والأرض بأمره ثم إذا دعاكم دعوت من الأرض إذا أنتم تخرجون. And one of his signs is that the heavens and the earth subsist by his command, and then when he calls you with a single call from out of the earth, behold, you come forth. And that's from 30:25.
Get out.
Next one, ولا يأبى الشهداء إذا ما دعوا ولا تسأموا أن
صغيرة أو كبيرة. That's
let the witnesses,
the invite.
Let the witnesses not refuse when they are called upon. Do not disdain to write the debt down, be it small or large, along with the time it falls due. And that's called upon.
That's about recording debts. If people are recording debt and you are nearby and they ask you to come to be a witness, you should not refuse, unless you have a valid reason and so on.
That's Al-Baqarah 282. All these, it relates to hosting and asking the invitee to say and do things in the form of advice and guidance. Now, the second meaning section.
Okay, so the second core meaning, yeah.
The second meaning, al-istidafa, that is invitation alongside a demand placed upon the one invited to respond through speech or action, generally in the form of advice, exhortation, or moral guidance. The most well-known instance of this meaning is the invitation to faith in Allah and the like. The form of usage typically appears transitive with the preposition ila, when followed
towards. Calls to God, calls to command good and forbidding evil, things like that. Invite to this with the two. In English, you say invite to carry the message, invite to account the rulers, and to do that, invite to.
When followed by nouns or with li, when governing verbs. Examples include the verse ادعوا إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن. That's a famous verse. Call people to the way of your Lord with wisdom and good teaching. Argue with them in the most courteous way.
Or invite the people to. Call or invite the people to. The same thing, essentially.
Next verse. وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا. Who speaks better than someone who calls people to Allah, does what is right? And that's 41:33. يا أيها الذين.
Everywhere we have the preposition إلى, to, call to, invite to, to. In Arabic إلى. The first there is no, it acts on the person. Invite him, come here. But this is invite to away, to a da'wah, to an activity.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا استجيبوا لله وللرسول إذا دعاكم لما يحييكم. Believers, respond to Allah and His Messenger when He calls you to that which gives you life. That's 8:24. Now, the third meaning, a request or petition accompanied by a sense of elevation or entitlement. That is a form of seeking.
That's the third meaning?
Yes, the third meaning.
Third meaning.
A form of seeking, talab, characterized by a tone of assertion or claim to right. This usage is rare in Quran, and we have found it only in the following instances as A, occurring with transitive proposition B, i.e. yad'u bi, in two places in the Quranic text. متكين فيها يدعون فيها بفاكهة كثيرة والشراب.
شراب.
Reclining therein, they will call for abundant fruit and drink.
Call
And
for.
that's
Like asking yourself, call for steak. Give me my steak. For. Call for.
next one. يدعون فيها بكل فاكهة آمين. آمنين. They will call for every kind of fruit therein, secure and content. So again, that's يدعون and B. The other appearing, the other B appearing in the derived form and the morphological paternal ifta'ala, as in idda'a, to claim, derived from da'a, just as one might say iktaba from kataba, occurring in 3 places in the Quran. So this is another verbal derivation.
Which core meaning is that? Which the third one?
This is all part of the third one. So this is ifta'ala. So the ifta'ala form for da'a.
But we're still in the third core meaning.
This is still third. This is still in the third section. Yeah. لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم يدعون. So there's so the doubling of the dal. So ifta'ala.
But they request, they have fruits and they have whatever they request. They're from the same category.
Therein they will have fruit and they will have whatever they ask for. Next, نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم ولكم فيها ما تدعون. That seems the part was تدعون. We are your allies. We are your allies in this world and in the hereafter. Therein you shall have whatever your souls desire, and therein you shall have and whatever you claim. That's what tad'una has been underlined as.
So you have a request.
And they say, when will this promise be fulfilled? If you are truthful, say, knowledge thereof is only with Allah. I am but a clear warner. But when they see, if drawing near, the faces of those who disbelieved will be darkened, and it will be said, that is what you used to claim. Okay, on to the fourth meaning. The fourth meaning relates to attribution, assignment, and designation. That is to attribute, ja'ala, to name, samma, and the like. This usage is rare in the Quran. قالوا اتخذ الرحمن ولدا لقد جئتم شيئا إدا تقاد السماوات يتفطرن منه وتشق الأرض
شق الأرض وتخر الجبال هدا.
هذا أن دعوا للرحمن
أن دعوا للرحمن ولدا.
Okay. They say, the most merciful has taken a son. Indeed, you have brought forth a monstrous claim, in which the heavens are almost torn. The earth splits asunder, and the mountains collapse in devastation, that they should attribute a son to the most merciful. It is not befitting for the most merciful to take a son.
That's دعوا للرحمن. دعوا لي. So attribute to. In English, we have the same two like previously. Is another preposition. Not إلى, لي. And دعوا للرحمن ولدا.
The phrase أن دعوا للرحمن ولدا, that they call to the most merciful a son, means they attributed to the most merciful a son. ومن يدعو مع الله إلها آخر لا برهان له به فإنما حسابه عند ربه إنه لا يفلح الكافرون. So that's ومن يدعو, and that is whoever prays to another God alongside Allah, of God for whose existence he has no evidence, will face his reckoning with his Lord. Those who reject the truth will not prosper. The phrasing of yad'u ma'allahi ilahan akhara, whoever prays to another God alongside Allah, here means to make or set up alongside Allah another God. Expressed in other words, to attribute divinity of some sort to other than Allah. It is possible that this falls under the fifth category, which will be mentioned shortly.
Yeah.
وأن المساجد لله فلا تدعوا مع الله أحدا, and that the mosques are for Allah, and so do not call upon anyone alongside Allah. The phrase فلا تدعوا مع الله أحدا, that is, do not associate with Allah anyone in divinity, or phrased differently, do not attribute any aspect of divinity to other than Allah.
Attribution, like with the walad, also the same with the walad. Do not attribute to a son to Allah. لله. And دعوا للرحمن ودعوا ولدا للرحمن. But he got للرحمن ahead to as a rhetoric device to make it enormous. And دعوا ولدا attributed a son to the Rahman, etc. Or with the Rahman, مع, or دعوا a partner مع, with the Rahman. So it directly is acts upon the called type directly with the preposition, but then it has to clarify what attribution, with whom it is going on. So and دعوا للرحمن ولدا, they attributed the son to whom? To Ar-Rahman. And the other one, the masajid, the places and the prostration is only for Allah. So don't attribute فلا تدعوا مع الله أحدا. Don't attribute to anybody that the sujood together with Allah. Okay, so it's attribution or naming, allocating that name. I think the best translation is attributing divinity, attributing sonship, attributing so on. Okay.
But your description there about sujood, how is that? It's a ma'allah. I can see how walad with is associating with Allah is negating attributes.
No.
What about sujood?
And masajid is not a sujood. Masajid, that's the places of sujood and the act of sujood. In this context, don't attribute any divinity or anything to anybody beside Allah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that carry in the verb in the terminology? Does that carry an equal prohibition, or is it of a different type of?
Has nothing to do with prohibition. It's just the meaning of yadu.
Okay.
Yeah, attributing with Allah a partner anywhere, but especially if it's related to masajid and salah specifically. These places of worship must be devoted exclusively to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There should be no idols and no other things to be called upon in these places. And
so that also, does that also cover, for example, shrines? So sometimes shrines.
Yeah, specifically, but it's general. Don't attribute to Allah any other partner anyway, in any occasion.
The reason I asked about the gravity or the nature of the injunction is because when they have shrines, then that could be, if it carries the same connotation.
Attribute to them divinity. We are going back in circle now. If you attribute to them divinity.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't attribute to them anything which make them somehow partner to Allah. لا تدعوا مع الله أحدا. لا تدعوا أحدا مع الله. Don't attribute divinity. That's the meaning. What else attribution you should avoid? That they exist. There's a shrine there. Yeah. Allah exists. Allah exists everywhere or nowhere. Yeah. That's so. Existence is attributed to both. But so what is the thing which are condemned and prohibited? To attribute divinity to anybody beside Allah, especially in the place of worship, but elsewhere. Okay, is it clear? Yeah.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
So I'm just...
Otherwise, you will be circular. You go in circularity. Which attribution is prohibited here? Strictly prohibited is attributing divinity or anything resembling divinity to anything else except Allah, in such a way that is equal to Allah. مع Allah. That's what he say. مع الله أحدا. مع. Together with Allah. But something which is not together with Allah, it has nothing to do with divinity, like attributing existence. Yeah. Yeah.
The phrase فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا, that is, do not associate with Allah anyone in divinity, or phrased differently, do not attribute any aspect of divinity to other than Allah.
Yeah, exactly.
However, this usage most likely belongs to the fifth category of meanings,
Mhm.
So now we're on to the fifth
Their
meaning.
supplication, they're calling for help, etc., etc.
The fifth meaning is to request and petition made with humility and submissiveness, typically expressed in a soft, reverent, and subdued voice. This is the usage that the Wahhabis designate as dua al-mas'alah, or supplication of request. It constitutes the predominant usage in the Quran and is the locus of the present investigation and disputation. وقال ربكم ادعوني أستجب لكم إن الذين يستكبرون عن عبادتي سيدخلون جهنم داخرين. Your Lord has said, call upon me and I will respond to you. Indeed, those who are too proud to worship me shall enter hell in humiliation. The phrase ud'uni here means seek from me and ask of me with humility and submissiveness. Ad'u rabbakum
bring a request, ask for something.
Ad'u rabbakum
تضرعا وخفية إنه لا يحب المعتدين.
Call upon your Lord in humility and privately. Truly, he does not love the transgressors. The phrase ud'u rabbakum here likewise means seek from your Lord and ask of him with humility and brokenness. The usage here meaning, or one closely related to it, also occurs in the following verse and others of similar tenor. وَإِذَا سَلَكَ عِبَادِي أَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. If my servants ask you concerning me, then indeed I am near. I respond to the call of the supplicant when he calls upon me. Moreover, it is also the case that this is conveyed in the generality of around 30 verses that come in the form you call upon other than Allah, which may be subject to certain objections. Examples of this being حتى إذا جاءتهم رسلنا يتوفونهم قالوا أين ما كنتم تدعون من دون الله قالوا ضلوا عنا. When our angels arrive to them back, saying, where are those you used to call on beside Allah? They will say, they have deserted us. Next.
And this could be from the other meaning also. Because the angels, when death to come, where are the ones you are calling beside Allah? Meaning, where are your divinities you are calling, most likely? Not the one you supplicate to or call for help, most likely, or both meaning. So it can be having the two faces in this situation. Yeah.
Okay.
Because anything called beside Allah is usually what people call to supplicate and ask for help at the same time. That's almost the standard situation, isn't it? Yeah. So when the angels of death come and say, okay, now you are dying, where is your gods? Where are they to help now? So they are lost. They cannot help us now. So most like meaning, where is the divinity you are divinity of them beside Allah? And because of this attribution, you are calling them for help. Where are they now to help or intervene or do anything? No, there's none. Okay. So it has the two sides of meaning. Okay, next. So it's not clearly requesting something. The previous ayahs are clearly only a matter of request. Because responding to question of the people, like for example, they asked, is our Lord far away? So we scream loudly asking for help and asking for forgiveness and so on, or he's close, so we just whisper. So then the Quran said, I am close. Respond to calls and to requests. So submit to me and ask me. Okay. So carry on, add further examples in this, but it's very frequent in the Quran. We just bring some examples. Some of them are clearly in that specific meaning, or some are maybe having multiple meaning at the same time. Okay, carry on.
ذلك بأن الله هو الحق وأن ما يدعون من دونه هو الباطل. So it will be because it is Allah alone who is the truth, and whoever else they evoke besides him is sheer falsehood.
That's most likely also both meaning. That was supplicate to and both they attribute divinity to. So the supplication based on attribution of divinity and vice versa.
Thus we assert, in none of the above verses, when read in their proper context, is there any necessity to interpret the term yad'un they call as meaning ya'budun, they worship. Hence, there is therefore no justification whatsoever for the false distinction made by the Wahhabi sect between du'a al-mas'ala, the supplication of request, and du'a al-ibadah, the supplication as it pertains to worship.
They read the ayahs very shallow. That's it, just brushing over and confuse the ayahs. تدعون من دون الله. This is an attribution. This is not a request and so on. Those who attribute divinity beside Allah. Yeah, that could be called dua ibadah, but it is not. It is attribution of divinity, and then we define ibadah later than what. Then it belongs in ibadah in that sense, because attribution of divinity is the base of ibadah. Okay, carry on.
As for the statement of the Wahhabis regarding the verse, قل أفرأيتم ما تدعون من دون الله إن أرادني الله بضر هل هن كاشفات ضره أو أرادني برحمة هل هن ممسكات رحمته. Say, have you considered what you call upon besides Allah? If Allah intended me with harm, could they remove his harm? Or if they intended me with mercy, or if he intended me with mercy, could they withhold his mercy? That's Surah 39:38. In their view, that namely that tad'un here means ta'budun, as noted in the earlier quote from Salih ibn Abdulaziz al-Sheikh.
That's also this is the same mistake. This is either call upon for help and other things and so on, and yeah, that will be requesting, but they're requesting because they attribute to them divinity, or attribute to them divinity even without asking anything. Either case, are they able to prevent harm coming to me, or are they able to prevent good coming to me from Allah? No, they are unable, neither this nor this. So they don't deserve to be attributed divinity, or they don't deserve to be called upon, because they cannot do nothing. Okay, so both. So no meaning to call that dua ibadah. It's either attribution. They did not get the point that attribution of divinity is the crucial point in this ayah. Plus, obviously, a requesting something from them because the belief in them that they're capable of delivering something. So there's nothing like dua ibadah. The dua is always either request or attribution, or calling someone, inviting someone to the court, or things like that, or inviting someone to carry a message, things like that. Has nothing to do with ibadah or non-ibadah. It's just some sort of attribution, invitation, requesting something, etc.
In their view, that namely tad'un here means ta'budun, as noted in the earlier quote from Salih ibn Abdulaziz al-Sheikh. This is an affront to the Arabic language and to the Quran, for it compromises the miraculous eloquence of its rhetoric. The proof is that were we to replace the term tad'un in the very verse with the term ta'budun, we would obtain the following sentence. Say, have you considered what you worship besides Allah? If Allah intended me with harm, could they remove his harm? Or if he intended me with mercy, could they withhold his mercy? Yet such a substitution would nullify the exquisite coherence of the meanings. For the original intent is clearly, do you believe that your supposed God's deities, those to whom you direct your pleas, from whom you seek benefit and the removal of harm, are actually capable of benefiting me, benefiting me by removing a harm which Allah has afflicted me with, or capable of harming me by withholding the mercy of Allah from reaching me?
So the focus here on that, you are requesting from those, in that case, the requesting God, they believe them divine, but your request, are these upon which you're asking and requesting capable of preventing harm coming from me if Allah has decided to come? No, they can't. Or prevent the good coming from Allah, they can't block it? No, they can't. So using using tad'un by the meaning requesting benefit, or asking for help and so on from them is a better meaning than just substituting only ta'budun. Is wider than just ibadah. It's attributing divinity to things which are also usually called upon for help and support. and benefits. So
The speech,
in the ayah using the تدعون من دون الله is more eloquent and more saying than تعبدون من دون الله. The ayah تعبدون من دون الله is also correct, no problem. But the eloquence and the full meaning is not. The flavor is gone. Yeah.
obviously, it would be difficult for us to appreciate because of language difference.
No, even in English, look at that. Consider those you call upon beside Allah. Can they prevent harm coming to you? And consider those you worship beside Allah. Can they prevent harm? The first one is more eloquent. Call upon, because calling upon them, asking for them things, not only just worshiping them. More. Yeah, it has more flavor. Just in English, even in English, substitute worship with call upon. In a situation which we are talking about getting something and preventing something. It's more safe, more flavor. Yeah, it's more flavor.
It's putting the cart before the horse. In the sense.
Yeah. No, it's more flavor. Even worship beside Allah entail, but directly. But this is to call beside Allah, call upon beside Allah. So can they prevent harm? Can this is meaning almost certainly these are calling upon beside Allah, meaning they attribute them divinity and they call them for help and so on. So that the rest of the statement makes better sense this way. Okay, you got a question from them something. Can they do anything? That's the question. But if you use the word ta'budun, worship, the proper question will be, are they worthy of it? That would be something else, you see? But here, can they do anything? The focus is different and the flavor is different and the scope is wider. It's eloquence. But most of these Wahhabi are just linguistically defunct anyway. No. Yeah.
The speech here then pertains to supplication, petition, and entreaty marked by humility and desperation to seek benefit or ward off harm, not to other categories of ibadat, ritual acts of worship. And this is the case with all the verses we have cited.
In this ayah specifically, it is supplicate to someone which divinity has attributed to him before that already agreed upon, because it's beside Allah. Yeah.
And this is the case with all verses we have cited above from the Noble Quran, which contain the phrase Yad'u min duni Allah. He calls upon besides Allah, or any of its verbal forms.
Beside Allah, under Allah, all of these things. You mention Allah in this context, meaning you are putting it somehow equal or in rank or related to Allah. And that's what indicates that there's an issue of divinity is included there. Although the rhetoric focus is focused on requesting and responding to the request. Yeah.
Were we to replace Yad'u and its derivatives with Ya'bud, worship, the core semantic intent would be lost.
Yeah.
It should be absolutely necessary to divert the term or some of its instances away from this fifth meaning, supplication marked by humility and entreaty. Then it would be more appropriate to interpret it according to a fourth meaning, attribution and designation. In that case, the meaning of Allah say, have you considered what you call upon besides Allah would be, have you considered those to whom you attribute divinity besides Allah?
Exactly.
The first expression is in perfect harmony with the saying of Allah exalted in His Majesty. وَمَن يَقُولْ مِنْهُمْ إِنِّي إِلَهٌ مِّن دُونِهِ فَذَلِكَ
نَزِّيهِ جَهَنَّمَ.
If anyone among them were to say, I am a God besides him, we should requite him with hell. Thus do we recompense.
Talking about the angels and the prophets and the close angels and prophets. No one will ever think or dare saying that I am a divine beside Allah.
Alternatively, one might render the phrase, have you considered what you make to be a God alongside Allah? This second formulation is in full accord with his statement. لا تجعل مع الله إله آخر. But so set up no other God besides Allah, and the rest of the verse, oh, you will sit disgraced and forsaken.
But you could phrase it, ولا تدعو مع الله إله آخر ولا تدعو, instead ولا تجعل. And the second one, it has extra flavor. So don't appoint a request receiver in same rank like Allah. I mean, do not attribute divinity to someone beside Allah and direct request to him. So the same like لا تجعل مع الله إلها آخر. And usually people, if they attribute divinity to someone, it is the target of request anyway. So, but this has other flavor than لا تجعل مع الله إلها آخر. And the other one is having more flavor. لا تجعل مع الله إلها آخر, and don't direct a request to him as being a divine being. So no question will arise. Is there a problem if I call someone standing on the pump, please run the water? No problem. Because he's not attributed divinity and he can run the machine. That's not a problem. He's very well capable of requesting. Has nothing to do with divinity or non-divinity. Yeah? You see what I mean? So, it's a question of divinity in the addressee, which makes the dua al-masala permissible, or shirk and kufr. And then deserving to be dua based on ibadah, or dua based on believing in divinity, which we'll discuss more. So that's it. Essentially like لا تجعل. Don't attribute divinity to any somebody beside Allah. Don't set gods beside Allah. لا تجعل مع الله إلها آخر ولا تدعو مع الله إلها آخر فتكون من المعذبين. The same thing, essentially, with a bit different in flavor. Okay, carry on.
Among this same category are also the hadith concerning unq min an-nar, the neck emerging from the fire of the day of judgment, in which it is stated that a voice will emerge saying, I have been commanded or assigned with three. Among them, whoever called upon another god, deity alongside Allah. Some transmissions render this as with the wording, whoever claimed another deity alongside Allah. Man adda'a ma'allahi ilahan akhar, where idda'a derived from da'a in the ifta'ala form is used. Other narrations mention whoever made another deity alongside Allah, man ja'alu ma'allahi ilahan akhar. This demonstrates the semantic equivalence in the minds of the narrators among the companions, their successors, and their followers, unless indeed these variant phrases reflect intentional variation of the Prophet's own wording. Peace and blessings be upon him. Also belonging to this category is the well-known hadith of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, may Allah be pleased with him, which he has been cited on numerous occasions. The rendition here has come down in the form, and what is shirk except calling upon another god alongside Allah, as transmitted by Imam Abu Ya'la in his Musnad, which again affirms the semantic equivalence in the understanding of the successors and their followers. So Musa ibn Muhammad ibn Hayyan narrated to us, Rawh ibn Aslam and Fahad narrated to us. They said Abdul Aziz ibn Muslim, I'll skip the chain here, and it terminates with from Makil ibn Yasir. He said, I witnessed the Prophet ﷺ with Abu Bakr, or he said, Abu Bakr narrated to me from the Prophet ﷺ that he said, shirk is more concealed among you than the creeping of ants. Abu Bakr replied, is shirk anything other than someone who calls upon another god along with Allah? So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, shirk is more concealed among you than the creeping of ants. Shall I not guide you to something that will remove from you its lesser and greater forms? Say, O Allah, I seek refuge in you from associating partners with you knowingly, and I seek your forgiveness for what I do unknowingly.
And another hadith clarified that's being showing off is a type of shirk, practical shirk, not shirk of creed and taking out of the whole of Islam. But it gets the actus being showed off. It annihilates the value of it. That's specific acts only.
Only at this point, with such semantic equivalences are established on the basis of evidence and not upon unsubstantiated assertions and unfounded claims, can one reasonably substitute tad'un, you call upon, in the verse, say, have you considered what you call upon besides Allah, with ta'budun, you worship, based upon the previously established equation. Worshipping other than Allah equals attributing divinity to other than Allah, which equals making another god alongside Allah. Only then, and only on this evidentiary basis, and with the correct understanding of the term ibadah, not as distorted by Wahhabi anxieties, may we state that that which you call upon besides Allah equals that which you worship besides Allah. It is thus unsurprising that the supposed distinction between Dua al-Masala and Dua al-Ibadah has confounded many people and failed to align with their sound natural dispositions. For as demonstration above, the truth is that such a dichotomy does not exist in any definitive sense. Rather, the term da'a, to call upon, occurs with various meanings, including those outlined above, depending upon the context. It very rarely carries the meaning of abadah, to worship. Abadah, to worship. And when it does, it is almost exclusively within the highly specific formulation, da'a min duni Allah, to call upon besides Allah, or da'a ma Allah, to call upon alongside Allah.
Yeah.
The esteemed Sheikh Abdurrahman ibn Yahya al-Muallimi noticed this, as documented in his collected works. It has been reported from some of the Salaf that they interpreted the word du'a in some instances as being ibadah, worship. This interpretation was almost universally adopted by later Mufassirin, but this interpretation is debatable as it is not recognized in the Arabic language. This is why many linguists, including those who deal with figurative language, such as the author of Al-Qamus, the author of Al-Asas, and that of Al-Misbah, didn't mention it. Even Al-Raghib, whose book focuses on the unique expressions of the Quran, did not mention it. Those who did mention it, like the author of Lisan al-Arab, did so only in the context of interpreting specific Quranic words. This is one of the most significant flaws in linguistic books. They adopt certain words that appear in the Quran and interpret them based on the understanding of some of the Salaf or their own inferences from context, and then establish these interpretations as part of the language. The Salaf were lenient in their expressions, relying on the understanding of the listener. They might interpret a word by its implication, by something that falls under its general meaning, or by other contextual indications, as noted by meticulous scholars. This approach has led to a great deal of variance in their interpretation. As for what they inferred from the text, they might have been mistaken. Therefore, it is inappropriate to assert that such interpretations represent the language. When a reader of linguistic books encounters a definition like al-hard, al-ma'na, hard means prevention. They take it as a certain transmission, not realizing that the author might have understood it from the context of the verse. This situation has its own implications. The most that they, i.e. those who interpret the relevant Quranic verses as acts of shirk, can argue is that construing the word in those passages according to its literal sense, i.e. mere invocation or calling, is untenable, since the Quran describes it in those very places as shirk. They maintain that interpreting it as petition or entreaty, raghba wa su'al, is also invalid. For such is due exclusively to Allah, glorious and exalted is He. Later commentators add that it has been transmitted from some of the early generations of the Salaf that they interpreted dua in some of these passages as ibadah. Here I would argue regarding
That's the implication. This is not the linguistic meaning. The linguistic meaning we clarified up there. Yeah.
Here I would argue regarding, this is you now, here I would argue regarding the claim that interpreting is merely a nida, calling, in those contexts is invalid. There is no objection, but to assert that it cannot be construed as petition and entreaty in the sense of supplicating Allah, exalted is He, is in need of consideration. As for when dua, supplication, signifies petition and entreaty, marked by humility and subservience, that which the Wahhabis term dua al-mas'ala, and when this is to be regarded as an act of ibadah, such that directing it to other than Allah constitutes shirk and kufr, then this, without doubt, is a matter of grave consequence. In it, the renegade Muhammad ibn Wahhab, the founder of the bloody and deviant Wahhabi sect, stumbled upon most egregiously. Numerous refutations were issued against him in this regard, until the matter was ultimately defined for them by Imam Muhammad ibn Ali al-Shawkani. Indeed, Imam al-Shawkani made an effort to further refine the discourse on dua, endeavoring to move beyond the objections and ambiguities raised by the noble Sayyid and Allama Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Amir al-Sanani. Al-Shawkani states in Risala fi Wujub Tawheed, Tawheed Allah, verily, the one who calls upon the dead, invokes them during times of hardship, circumambulates their graves, and seeks from them that which none has power over save Allah, exalted He. This can only proceed from a belief akin to that the people of Jahiliyyah had with regards to the Asnam. If what is intended from the deceased whom he venerates is akin to what the pagans of Jahiliyyah thought from their Asnam, namely nearest to Allah, then there is no distinction between the two. And if he intends that the one invoked among the dead possess independent power to fulfill that which none but Allah the Mighty and Sublime can fulfill, then even the people of Jahiliyyah did not reach such a claim. Here, Imam Shawkani himself, a prominent Zaydi jurist and perhaps a Mujtahid Mutlaq, sought to resolve the issues by introducing a new criteria based upon i'tiqad and not upon mere external acts and utterances. Qua acts and utterances. I don't know about that. That's a legal term, I think. One can see from his comments that in his own estimation, he was delivering a decisive blow against the so-called Quburiyun, grave worshippers, grave venerators worshippers, pronouncing against them the verdict of major shirk, that of kufr, thereby expelling them from the fold of Islam and laying to rest the objections raised by the noble Sayyid Al-Amir As-Sana'ani. May Allah most high have mercy upon him. It is most likely, however, that this principle was not Shawkani's own innovation, but rather borrowed from the writings of Ibn Taymiyyah, who states explicitly, the one who requests dua from another falls into two categories. First, that his request arises from a need, or for the other, that is analogous to seeking from others the fulfillment of personal needs. Second, that he seeks from the other a supplication, whereby the supplicator benefits the requester by his dua, and Allah benefits both thereby. This is like requesting from a created being that which the created being is capable of doing, such as supplicating Allah or offering assistance. Such a request is permissible, akin to seeking help in that which lies within his power. However, if what is sought is that which no one has power over save Allah, then it is impermissible to ask for it from any other than Allah. However, this is your commentary. However, this too is invalid and of no avail, for the so-called Dabit criterion is not sound. It was presented without proper definition, and its intended referent remains unknown. Do Ibn Taymiyyah and Ash-Shawkani mean by the phrase "ma la yaqdiru alayhi illallah," that which none has power over save Allah, as it is in reality and in the ontological order of things based upon definitive rational and scriptural proofs? Or do they mean it according to the belief of the Quburi venerator making the request? As for the former, it is of no prohibitive value, for we know with certainty that through decisive rational, historical, and religious evidences, that Allah is nothing but a name ascribed to a fictitious female entity that has no real existence. Yet whoever believes in her existence and that she is among the daughters of Allah or his consort is without doubt a mushrik kafir, let alone being in manifest error and delusion. Therefore, what must necessarily be taken into consideration is the belief of the supplicant himself, i.e., the individual under discussion, whom Ash-Shawkani describes as one who calls upon the dead, invokes them during times of hardship, circumambulating their graves, and seeks from them that which none has power over save Allah. What is relevant is the content of this belief and the internal mental conception that motivates such acts and utterances, not the mere presence of a belief in the abstract, as has been thoroughly investigated and substantiated previously. Only then can one legitimately pass judgment on such belief, declaring it to be akin to the belief of the mushrikeen of the Jahiliyyah, or even, Allah forbid, viler and more reprehensible, as was asserted by Imam Shawkani. By its necessity, it is evident that the supplicant holds some form of belief and conception, for he would not turn with his petition except to one whom he believes hears him, or to whom his invocation can be conveyed, and whom he considered capable of answering the plea and fulfilling the need. Otherwise, he would necessarily be insane, mentally deranged, and unfit to be addressed by the obligations of the Sharia. The inquiry, then, must be directed to the nature and content of the belief held by the supplicant. If he believes concerning the one whom he invokes a belief that entails shirk and contradicts the established fundamentals of Islam, then his supplication constitutes ibadah and is therefore an act of shirk and kufr that expels one from the fold of the religion. If not, then it does not. For instance, if a supplicant calls upon one for a matter which you believe to be something that none has power over save Allah, it becomes necessary to inquire regarding this belief. His answer will inevitably fall into one of the following categories. Firstly, that this matter is indeed something which none has power over save Allah. In such a case, he must then affirm one of the following. A, the one being called upon is Allah himself, or that Allah has united with him or indwelt within him, or that he is part of Allah, or that he is an image without real existence created by Allah in the perceptual faculties of onlookers, or something similar to such claims that were made concerning the Messiah, Jesus the son of Mary, upon him and his mother be peace. All such positions constitute shirk and kufr in belief, for they entail that the supplicant has defied the one invoked, considering him according to his claim as being the very essence of Allah, or a part of Allah, or an incarnation of Allah, or the image of Allah, or one in whom Allah has indwelt, or something analogous thereto. In such cases, the invocation is necessarily an act of ibadah, and the supplicant, by means of his invocation, becomes a worshipper of the one invoked. This view, inherently one of kufr, is exceedingly rare, and proponents often declare it openly from the outset, as do the Trinitarian Christians, and thus the matter rarely requires protracted disputation. Next, or B, that the one invoked is wasitah, an indispensable intermediary to Allah. For Allah, according to this claim, does not have knowledge of particulars, and hence there is no meaning in addressing him directly. It becomes necessary, therefore, to invoke one who will convey the needs to him. This is a statement of kufr, shirk and kufr, unambiguously so. The intermediary in this case has been made a god, a nid, and a nid, rival alongside Allah. After this, see that the one invoked is a necessary intermediary for executing the decree of Allah, because Allah, according to this conception, does not condescend to involve himself with the defilement of the world of corruption and occurrences, and so requires an assistant in implementation, or one who executes on his behalf. This too is a statement of shirk and kufr, manifestly so, and the intermediary has thus been made a god and a rival, nid, alongside Allah. Finally, that the one invoked is an essential intermediary both from and to Allah, because Allah, according to this view, is proud and exalted beyond concern for his servants, showing no care for them whatsoever. Thus, there is no point in addressing him directly. One must instead call upon the one who will raise a petition to him or carry it out in his stead. This too is a statement of shirk and kufr, plainly so, and the intermediary has been made a god and a rival alongside Allah. Secondly, there are other considerations, such as that he responds by saying that the matter in question lies within the power of a being other than Allah. This is conceivable in various situations, such as A, the one invoked possesses a power that rivals, approximates, or equals the power of Allah, even if only with respect to that specific matter or discrete instance. In such a belief, the supplicant has made the one invoked a rival to Allah and an equal to him, or at least has placed him on the same level, even if one single aspect or affair. This is shirk and kufr in belief, for the supplicant has defied the one being called upon as God besides Allah. The act of dua in this context is necessarily an act of ibadah, and through such invocation, the supplicant becomes a worshipper of the one invoked besides Allah. We hasten to add that this is in and of itself a statement of outright kufr, and no one can escape its consequence by claiming that such a power, equal, rivaling, or approximating the power of Allah, is created by Allah. Such a claim contradicts definitive, unequivocal scriptural texts, and prior to that is intrinsically impossible according to reason. For it would entail by necessity that Allah, the majestic and exalted, is not the truth, nor the first, nor the self-subsisting, nor the one who is absolutely self-sufficient, nor the necessary existent, nor the pre-eternal. That he is so and simultaneously not so entails contradiction, collapses rationality, and nullifies the very basis of divine legislation. We seek refuge in Allah from such a blasphemy. This is clear-cut kufr and clear-cut shirk as well, where it renders anything potentially divine at the same time, thereby producing an endless sequence of contradictions and impossibility. Next, which is B, that the one invoked who's a being other than Allah possesses power over that affair, such that the claim this is something that none has power over save Allah would not apply. This power does not rival the power of Allah, but it is self-subsistent and independent. It is neither created nor decreed by Allah, or it is a supernatural power attained through strenuous asceticism or mystical devotion in an occult or esoteric manner, as was alleged in the tale of the Indian sage Durvasa, or it is from the creation and decree of Allah, but the one who's one so empowered is independent in his actions from Allah, requiring neither his permission nor his will, similar to the belief held by the Quraysh of old and by many of the pagan Africans today concerning the jinn, who are thought to belong to a divine species, albeit of a different tribe from that of Allah, most high and most exalted. Likewise, concerning the angels, who are seen by such groups as belonging to the same divine tribe, and perhaps even as the sons and daughters of Allah, exalted is here far above such vile utterances and repugnant conjectures. Such a belief, too, constitutes shirk and kufr in doctrine. For the supplicant has defied the one invoked as a god beside Allah, has defied the one invoked as a god besides Allah. The invocation in this instance is necessarily an act of worship, and the supplicant becomes thereby a worshipper of the one invoked besides Allah, and hence necessarily a polytheist of the gravest kind, a mushrik guilty of ashirk al-akbar. And finally, C, that the one being invoked, who is a being other than Allah, possesses power over that matter, and thus the objection, this is something that none has power over except Allah, does not apply. However, this power does not rival or equal the power of Allah. Rather, it is not intrinsic to the invoked being. Rather, he is a creature of Allah, and his power is created and decreed by Allah. Moreover, he is unable to exercise this power except by the permission and will of Allah. He is therefore not independent in action from Allah, but rather acts by Allah's enabling and permission. In this case, the matter may fall into one of two possible categories. Firstly, that the supplicant is mistaken in attributing such power to the one invoked, whereas in truth the latter does not possess it. This may amount to an error in judgment or an expression of delusion, but is not necessarily shirk. Indeed, keep in mind the dictum that every instance of shirk is falsehood and myth, but not every falsehood and myth is necessarily shirk. If such a person is properly instructed, corrected, and made to realize that he is acting upon a delusion or falsehood, he will either desist from such supplication, or he will by necessity be classified under one of the four aforementioned or forthcoming categories. Second, that he is in error or imprecise in his wording, such as one who says, "O my master, messenger of Allah, I ask for your companionship in paradise," or "O my master, Abdul Qadir, assist me." Yet what he truly intends is, "O my master, messenger of Allah, pray to Allah that I may be granted companionship with you in paradise," or "O my master, Abdul Qadir, pray to Allah that he may assist me with strength and resolve." At this point, an objector may interject hastily, "But how can one call upon the absent or the dead? Is this not in itself a polytheistic belief?" We reply, certainly not. The living person who is present only hears by that which Allah has created in him of instruments and faculties of hearing, and only by Allah's permission and will, not by any independent or intrinsic capacity. For this reason, that select body of scholars refrained from restricting Ash-Shawkani's Dabit criterion to the invocation of the deceased specifically. Instead, they stated, "Whoever calls upon other than Allah, mighty and majestic, with respect to that which none can perform except Allah, is a mushrik and kafir, whether the one invoked is living or deceased." Thus, it is stated in Usul al-Iman fi Da'wa al-Katib wa Sunnah,
الكتاب والسنة. الكتاب والسنة.
A passage which we have cited in full above. And indeed, this statement would be sound if the criterion itself were properly defined and regulated, but regrettably, such is not the case. As for the statement of Nukhbah min al-Ulama, the elite body of scholars, that reads, "And whoever calls upon a living person with respect to that which he is capable of, such as saying, 'Oh, so-and-so, feed me,' or 'so-and-so, give me drink,' and the like, then there is nothing upon him." Clearly, this is not entirely precise, even though it may be tolerated out of leniency. However, what is properly incumbent to state is the following: "And whoever calls upon a living person who is present, with respect to that which he is capable of doing, of such as saying, 'Oh, so-and-so, feed me,' or 'Oh, so-and-so, give me drink,' and the like, then there is nothing upon him, provided that he holds with resolute conviction that the one being called upon is created and subjugated being, possessing no power save what Allah has enabled him with, and that he in no wise escapes the all-encompassing dominion of Allah's cosmic sovereignty. He cannot flee Allah's grasp, nor evade him through any means." As for their statement, "And whoever calls upon the dead or the absent with such request, then he is a mushrik," for neither the dead nor the absent is capable of such deeds. This is sheer falsehood and a naked fabrication, for the ability of the dead or the distant to hear by Allah's enabling of them is not something beyond Allah's power, nor does affirming the ability entail attributing deficiency to Allah or committing deviation in relation to his names. It is merely something contrary to customary norms, and thus requires demonstrative proof either from sensory experience and rational analogy, as with the telephone or wireless transmission, for example, or from textual evidence. Therefore, to assert such a claim without substantiating it with proof is invalid and a form of delusion, though it does not constitute shirk. As we have established earlier by the dictum, every instance of shirk is a myth and falsehood, but not every myth or falsehood is necessarily shirk. Okay, that's okay. I think that's anyone not unclear on that? I mean,
I think it's very clear, but it's expanded there. If someone has some clarity, should go and read it several times and make it, if this is a flow chart or a diagram or something like that, or a table. Sometimes these explanatory tools are helpful.
Could be worth putting through AI as well.
Just you need to be careful, subdivide things nicely and pointedly, then things will become clear. the problem with the Wahhabi and the most Hanbali and so on, and most classics is that it's quite shallow. They just brush over. Like the word da'a and the various 5, 6 main meanings, nobody classified them like that as far as I know in history, except myself, which is a shame. It should have been done from the first days right away. Just by scanning the Quran. Quran is really the control of the Arabic language, is not the opposite. And the context in these, like we did with dhikr, when we discussed the dhikr in the chapter or in the beginning for the usul and so on, the various meanings of dhikr, 4 or 5 meanings, and give example for that. This way, things will clarify much better, but it has not been done. Maybe the Sahaba, Tabi'in, they are Muslim and eloquent Arabs, they could understand that on the fly, but later on it should have been done systematically and developed properly. Some of that is done by Tabari, but not extensively as it should be in certain situations. But at his time, some problem with this type did not emerge anyway, or no discussion of this type. That came much later, like Ibn Taymiyyah and around and after that. Okay, carry on. Or did we consume a lot of time? What's the time?
We've got plenty of time, so we can finish this chapter. We've only got a few pages left.
Okay.
It's 9:33, so we've only been going for about an hour 20.
Perfect. We'll finish this one, yeah.
Okay. Some individuals are of the opinion that the Prophet ﷺ, upon his death and the liberation of his soul from the constraints of the body, transitioned into a state of greater perfection and potency. Consequently, they've watched Star Wars, Obi-Wan. Consequently, they believe that he now hears from afar and exercises powers he was not capable of doing during his earthly life. All of this, they claim, occurs by Allah's enablement and permission through the bestowal of particular faculties and a uniquely elevated station granted to him by Allah. Nevertheless, they maintain that he has not transcended the degrees of createdness. He remains a servant, created and subjugated, possessing no power to harm or benefit himself, save what Allah wills. Such a view, in this generalized and absolute formulation, is in the soundest and most correct opinion a false belief, intrinsically untrue and not conforming to reality. Yet it is without doubt not something that expels one from the deen per se. Nor does it entail any deficiency or diminution in Allah's omnipotence or his exclusive sovereignty over creation, governance, and ordinance. Nor does it constitute rejection of anything transmitted from Allah or his messenger. As such, dua directed under such a presumption does not fall under the category of ibadah, nor does it amount to shirk or kufr in any sense. Indeed, it may well be haram if it takes on a form contravening the dictates of sacred law, or due to other legal constraints, and it may alternately not be so. It is perhaps evidence from the foregoing discussion, concise though it may be, that the oft-repeated phrase dua only constitutes ibadah if the supplicant request from other than Allah that which none but Allah is capable of, is in need of explanation, elaboration, division, and qualification. Without these, it becomes of little utility and negligible consequence. And such vagueness is impermissible in matters as grave as those which pertain to Islam and disbelief, Tawheed and Shirk, issues that are indeed matters of life and death. Therefore, it cannot rightly be termed a dabit, decisive criteria, as claimed by the blind imitators of Miao. Rather, it is itself in urgent need of regulating criteria and explanatory commentary in order to render it meaningful. So wretched indeed is this so-called criteria, which is itself devoid of all regulation. As for the statement of Al-Shawqani, and if he intends that the one invoked among the dead possesses independent power to fulfill that which none but Allah, the Mighty and Sublime, can fulfill, then even the people of Jahiliyyah did not reach such a claim. This is an uncorroborated assertion, indeed a reprehensible presumption that stands in stark contradiction to categorical evidence that the mushrikeen, the idolaters of the pre-Islamic era, did in fact attribute uluhiyah, divinity, to their beliefs, or to be more precise, to the being which the idol was held to represent. Such attribution implies a variety of doctrinal positions, many of which necessarily entail the belief in independent agency of the deities, even if only in a single specific domain or limited capacity. It seems that Imam Shawkani took at face value the legend of Allat, who was said to have needed the sawiq, gruel, for pilgrims and relied upon the false claims of the renegade Miao that the mushrikeen believed the dead in the dead and the righteous, as though it were an uncontested matter. Yet all of this has been demonstrated in earlier chapters, complete falsehood refuted by the decisive and incontrovertible proofs. We have already cited the statement of Al-Alusi in his Tafsir Ruh al-Ma'ani, where he says, the second point is that people have become excessively engaged in invoking other than Allah. Exalted is He among the saints, whether living or deceased, or others, such as saying, Sayyidina, Sayyidi Fulan, help me. This is from Alusi. Help me. This is in no way among the categories of permissible tawassul, intercession. What benefits a believer is to refrain from uttering such words and not to linger near its precincts. Some among the scholars have deemed it shirk, and even if it is not explicitly so, it certainly approaches it. I do not believe that anyone who says such things does so unless he harbors a belief that the one called upon, whether a living absentee or a veiled deceased, possesses knowledge of the unseen, or hears the call, or is capable, either independently or through another, of bringing benefit or averting harm. Otherwise, he would not have called out to him, nor opened his mouth with such utterance. Indeed, therein lies a severe trial from your Lord. To this, so this is your commentary, to this we respond that this statement is indeed more rational and significantly more balanced. Here Al-Alusi does not categorically declare such supplication to be shirk. He asserts that such utterances by the supplicants necessarily stem from mutaqadat, specific beliefs concerning those being invoked, such as their knowledge of the unseen, their ability to hear the call, or their capacity, either independently or otherwise, to confirm benefit or avert harm. To this we say Alusi has spoken truthfully, yet what he enumerates of beliefs does not in and of itself render the one attributed with them a divine being. As for what is referred to as the unseen, it is a relative matter. What is hidden from me may be manifest to you. The crux of the matter is whether the one being invoked is believed to possess knowledge obtained through independent, self-sustaining power, i.e. without the permission or will of Allah. In other words, he knows without being taught by Allah, or knows even if Allah willed to withhold such knowledge. If such a belief is affirmed, then this is indeed a belief in a divine entity. Otherwise, it is not. The same applies to hearing, as was stated regarding knowledge, letter for letter. As for Al-Alusi's phrase, either independently or through another, it is void of precision. For either the power attributed is independent and self-sustained, which is an attribute of divinity, or it is not. And if it is not, then it cannot constitute ilahiyya, godhood. It is apparent that the notion of divine essence or divine lineage never even crossed Al-Alusi's mind. On the other hand, the calling upon of the saints and the righteous may indeed constitute shirk and kufr, that the Wahhabis term major shirk, if the caller has attributed to them any element of uluhiyya in a general and unrestricted sense, as has already been extensively clarified in the preceding chapters. This would then, and only then, render the act of calling in such a case a form of ibadah, as the Wahhabis assert. However, the act may also fall short of constituting shirk and may be merely haram and ithm, sinful, without entailing apostasy or exiting the fold of Islam. In this case, we do not permit the use of the label minor shirk, except with explicit textual evidence affirming such a designation, as has been stated by the noble scholar Sayyid Al-Alama Muhammad ibn Ismail Al-Amir. May Allah have mercy upon him. Alternatively, it may fall into either of the four aforementioned categories, as in the case of the companion Bilal ibn al-Harith al-Mudhani,
Muzali.
may Allah be pleased with him, who during the year of drought came to the messenger of the Prophet, messenger to the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, and said, "O Messenger of Allah, seek rain for your ummah, for they are perishing." This matter has been addressed in a separate study which was undertaken, and it is entitled Tawassul, the Hadith of Malik ad-Dar, and what is similar to it. All of this hinges upon the content and nature of the belief held by the supplicant, not merely the presence of any belief whatsoever, nor upon its emotional intensity or degree of conviction, nor upon the urgency or sincerity of the call, or the specific subject matter invoked, whether it is isti'ana, seeking aid, isti'adha, seeking refuge, istighatha, pleading for rescue, istiqa, the seeking of rain, or istimdad, seeking spiritual strength. Likewise, the judgment must be grounded in the evidentiary foundations of the revealed text, not upon putrid analogies, wild conjectures, or sweeping, baseless generalizations. Hence, what the rebellious Khariji, Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, termed shirk al-qubur, or the supposed shirk associated with graves, is in its very essence and principle a myth, a fictional construct that exists only within his own diseased imagination. When tied to the rulings concerning kufr and iman, this innovation is a monstrous heresy and a blinding misguidance, one that ultimately led its inheritance to draw the sword against the people of Islam. Such conduct falls under the category of kufr amali, practical disbelief, for reviling a Muslim and fighting him are acts of kufr. And it is to be feared that if they persist in this path, they may fall into the abyss of theological shirk and kufr, leading to the eternal damnation and unending fire. We ask indeed, beseech Allah, seeking refuge in him from such a damning fate. And this concludes this chapter.
Let me see if there's any questions.
Okay. Anyone got any questions? I mean, I've got one thing to associate with this. So this would also apply with the the point of view of the Shia with their 12 Imams. It's certainly retarded beliefs in terms of them having various super duper powers, but it doesn't fall into shirk unless they consider them independent. I mean, this can be applied here, because the reason I bring this up is because it's quite topical. It's because it's quite topical in terms of istighatha has been called out, and a lot of the obviously Saudi money and UAE money behind it really supercharging the narrative.
Leave this. Let's focus on what the question is.
So they're bringing out the 12 Imams having control over power. So Daniel Hakikatu had a debate with various people about this subject, saying that if it falls short of, it's wrong, but it's not shirk because they don't believe they have these powers independent of Allah. So
we don't know. Some may believe that. We don't know. But the clarification is what we said. It depends upon which kind of power it is. It's an intrinsic one or given by Allah, with Allah's permission, etc. And Allah creation or not. If it is not, then it is divinity. And then a red card out, kufr and shirk. If it is not, then it's not. The question, even if it's the second one, is it true? Is it a reality? Most likely it's not a reality. It's a khurafa, it's a myth. It's a legendary theory, which has no evidence anywhere. Anyone can claim, my sheikh, my imam, so and so have control over universe given by Allah, and he is empowered to do so and so on. Anyone can claim that. Did it really happen? Because it's within Allah's power. Some claims are out of that, like for example, claiming he has this power given and he is giving full authority, so Allah has withdrawn his power from him, the meaning he has become then divine. That's impossible. Even it's not accessible to divine power. Exactly like the claiming that a being who was originally a human has been lifted into divinity and suddenly became divine, equal in power to Allah. This is impossible. That's going to make Allah contradictory. So it's better to say Allah does not exist rather than say this nonsense. That's not possible. There are some claims which are impossible, can be refuted rationally, that they could not have happened with any power, including the divine power. Because the divine power extends only to the contingency. The same with the knowledge. When we say Allah knows everything, we have shown, and the Quran shows that the future events which have not been decided by Allah yet cannot be known as such. Only the probability and the possibility. That's it. So that's an impossibility also. So attributing something like that to something that is even worse than attributing divinity, making him super divine or over divine, which is utterance, contradiction. So these are the three categories: either attributing powers and so on, which is internally contradictory, that's impossible, so that's out. And secondly, attributing independent power and so on, that's shirk. And the third, no, this and this and this, all under Allah's control, and nothing being under Allah's control in creation, beginning at the end. So even later, Allah can stop him, can do whatever he wants. He has not withdrawn. The same with authorized for doing legislation. They claim for the church conferences and councils and so on. No, they claim this power has been transferred and cannot be taken back. No, it's not true. It has never been transferred. It cannot be transferred because it's a sovereignty, is an intrinsic attribute to Allah, being the creator and being the commander by necessity. So how can he transfer that? Meaning transfer his own attributes, make himself deficient? No. So giving some authority to the others based on his power, yes, but this is not the legislative power. This is executive power. The power to derive ruling, power to write laws, but not to initiating fundamentally what's good and evil by itself. That's a privilege of the divine, of the one who creates ex nihilo, not for anybody. It can't be transferred. So the claim that does not mean that if they claim, oh, it's actually by authorization, Allah authorized them to do that, because it's not possible to authorize. So the claim they have been authorized is a fundamental fallacy on this undermined. By this claim, they have become divine. They're given the intrinsic sovereignty, which is not possible. So it's a fallacy, and the statement itself is a statement of kufr and shirk. The same with the power, creative power, both commanding and legislative or normative power, declaring haram and halal, and the creative power, creating and non-creating. Cannot be transferred as such. Can be given under control with permission, and every act has to have permission, and the later acts have to be permission, and so on. And then the question, did that really happen for the imams or for someone or for a prophet? Is it a fact, or if it's just an imagination? I would say most of that is just legendary, just legends, imagination, running wild, admiration going overboard, making absolutely no sense. Mostly relying on fabricated narrations and imaginations and sentimental outbursts and nonsense and dreams and visions and rubbish. Nothing really reliable. Yeah. So that's the comprehensive answer. So we don't know what the Imam say exactly. If we have scrutinized this out, the remaining is that, okay, it is not shirk if it's clarified this way. But is it true? Is it real? What's the evidence for it? If you ask for evidence, there's none. They claim because of the relation to the Prophet himself has no evidence like that for him. The whole Quran is clear, even if the Brailwis and those that do not like it. They will not go to Shia, go to the Brailwi. So it's clear. لا أملك نفسي ضرا ولا نفعا إلا ما شاء الله. Clearly. عالم الغيب فلا يطلع على غيبه إلا من ارتضى من رسول فنفسهم بين يديهم بخلف الأرض ليعلم من قد أبلغ الرسالة. Even after communicating with them, they're under control and watch that they communicate properly. Unless Allah make them infallible. But not all prophets have been made infallible. They are under watch, or some at least. So if they fail, their neck is broken and they cast out, like Bal'am ben Ba'ura. But those have been made infallible by Allah's action. Khalas, that's it. No need for a Rasul to control that they don't make a mistake. But only that's what they are given for knowledge. Otherwise, they have nothing intrinsically. We heard the story of Musa with the Khidr. And the Khidr told him, listen, I have knowledge in specific cases you don't have. Like I knew about this boy that he is a criminal and who will bother his father's mother to death. So he dispatched with him. So they have a daughter who's coming soon out of age. She is kind, she is nice. She will care for them better than this gang leader. Most like this. They had street gangs at that time, like the street gangs nowadays. It's no good. Musa had absolutely no idea how this works. That's specific. And say you have knowledge which I don't have. You have general injunction which I never received. I cannot comprehend them. You have a Sharia. I don't have a Sharia. I have come do this, do that, do that, because this, do that. It's single orders. It's another category of knowledge. And so, and then both our knowledge is nothing to except Allah. The story says, that's a narration, not in the Quran, says he saw a bird picking something from the sea, wetting his beak in the sea. Say, how much of the water is gone in the picture? Most say nothing. And mostly the Sea of Galilee, we're talking about that now. Say nothing is gone there. Say my knowledge, personal knowledge, all of it compared to Allah's knowledge is like what the bird has taken. Nothing. So Allah's knowledge. So all the evidence in the Quran and the history shows that this exaggeration and command over the universe and so on is just imagination running wild, and stories, some of them even disgusting, like some Brahili stories about all that stuff. One Brahili once told me a story. I would say it here just to cause most people a shock. He claimed that when the Prophet goes through the Ludi Fakir, what comes like a mask, so you can use it for getting a nice smell, perfume. When imagination, admiration goes overboard, you make yourself to a mockery for your own self. You just look at yourself and then just you mock yourself. Say, okay, fine. These are people who are completely brain dead, infected with Hinduism to just uncontrollable limit.
Retardation. Okay, anyone got any questions?
I have to go to a magic world. You have to leave rationality, go into a magic world. Okay. So that's the answer. But shirk, yes, it has clear criteria. If that things attributed to the entity, exclusively divine or cannot be attributed and so on, that's shirk. If it's not, it's maybe khurafa, like the khurafa of that experiment of the Prophet is musky or something like that. That's a khurafa. A disgusting one, by the way. It's okay.
Okay. All right. If anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hands. Otherwise, we can call it a day, inshallah, because we've done a full chapter there. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is the new time because the Maghrib and Isha, we're in perpetual twilight now anyway, so Maghrib and Isha are combined.
This should be combined, general, but I hope this brother who started doing the research will contact soon, bring all the things, and then we can put them together in a small piece. Just a neat piece. As
What is this one? Is this on the Arabic side, yeah?
As a
This is from the Arabic side.
Yeah. It's easy to translate, no problem.
That's fine. That's fine. I just as long as
just get all the evidences from the sources and so on, and then we do the translation, inshallah, even using computer translation. Should be sufficient. This is a small issue.
Yeah. I mean, well, once the Arabic stuff done, we can.
It's not worth fighting for anyway.
Yeah,
okay. So that's clear. That's clear. But if someone just read it again and try to be more using your mind and analytically more, like yesterday the brother who talked about the Salaf he's stuck with the word Salaf, and China said, and Russia said, who is China? Which Salaf you're talking about? And if you say Salaf, meaning that's all of them, who are they, the Salaf you are mentioning? And if he scrutinized, he would say that what the people say Salaf is Ahmed and Hanbal and Malik and so on. They are not even from the 3 generations. Ahmed at least. Malik may be from the 3 generations. But the others not. So it is just a word anyone later will put so to put the people on the spot. That's not a tradition. That's not what the orthodoxy claims. Things like that they use in the Christianity. The same thing. To stop everyone in his track. That's not what the Orthodox position. What's the Orthodox position? What is it? Who created it? When it was established? How far back can we go? Nothing like that. That's the best way to demolish a religion, is to appeal to things like that. Usually people appeal because of ignorance, but sometimes the religion itself has been formulated in a certain phase after a lot of fabrication beginning, like in the case of Christianity. Judaism is much worse. In the case of Islam, we have the protected dhikr and the Sunnah Mutawatira, which is usually ignored by these people. I'm sure like hadith here, a part hadith there. And complete ayahs, complete surah, complete series or hadith which give their connected meaning are just ignored and neglected. Important principles to establish with institute are just ignored as if they don't exist. Like basic spirituality, this and this and this. And they go in esoteric world of guesswork, and it looks like gambling, it looks like this. It doesn't look like that. These things can be studied structurally, but you need a bit more effort than that. Just hand-waving arguments. The same here. Just read it carefully, and if necessary, make a flow chart, make a table until you absorb it. The moment you once have absorbed it, it's for life. Maybe every few years, every few decades, you may need to review it again to refresh it. That's it. Especially the meaning of words in the Quran, expressions, by scanning the Quran. And you have the Mu'jam al-Mufaras, the indexed dictionary of the Quran from Muhammad Fuad al-Baqi. You can trace all rules and so on, follow all of them and scrutinize them and see in which context they come and try to classify them, see what's the meaning, read the ayahs, the context, until the meaning, like in the word da'wa, we found about like 5 or 6 main meanings. Maybe you can subdivide a little bit more, maybe in the next edition, maybe number 5 comes the A, B, something like that, a little bit finer. Okay, no problem. But this way you are in the safe ground, because you have the reference frame for the language. But the Quran is not only a reference frame for revelation, it is a reference for the language. The language refers to the Quran. It is in eloquent Arabic. If it is a revelation, then it is the controller of the language, not the opposite. The language is defined by the Quran, not the Quran defined by the language. Because the language developed slowly over millennia until a cut time came when the Prophet came. That specific language of the time of the Quran is the Arabic language at the time, and that's enshrined in the Quran. And this is fixed now for all time in the future. The dialects develop, they develop whatever they want. We can refer back to the Quran. Is that the word used in the dialect similar to the original one or not? If not, then we have to correct it or ignore it. Some fuqaha use the word in such meaning. Is that the meaning of method or no? Then there's a confusion. Don't be fooled by the fuqaha using a word in a certain meaning and you think it's the meaning of the Quran. No, it is not. It's their convention. It may be a legitimate convention, maybe not. But it doesn't matter. But you have to refer to the Quran. And luckily, it's only a few rules there in the Quran, a couple of thousand, that's all. Most of them use only once or twice. And the rest, maybe only 500, 600 rules. They cover almost 99.9% of the Quran. And they have the most common words. They are still used even in the common language and the dialects, almost like in the Quran. So you're on the safe ground. You don't need these huge dictionaries. As if you are studying poetry or ahadith. Ahadith have much more complicated many words. And you need to refer to many things. Because the Quran is actually miraculously amazing by the few numbers of words and rules it uses. Just the opposite of what you expect from literary, high literary writing. Because, for example, in almost every language, the common people, not the street workers, no, I mean common people like the people in work, in industry and so on, use usually 2,000 words, roughly. That's explain everything with 2,000 words. If you go to the people of literature, like Thomas Mann, like Victor Hugo, like Shakespeare, you go up to 10,000 words. Yeah. There are exceptions. Like Victor Hugo is known to have used about 15,000. And the scholars, they counted that. They checked how come that he is excessive in that than the human average. It turns out that he was consulting a dictionary steadily and was keen to find new words and insert them. So he's deliberately increasing his word treasury. If you check the Quran, think because so eloquent and so nicely sounding, must have much more. In reality, it had much less. Much less. I tried one day to start the count, but did not have support to finish the job, so it kept it suspended. Maybe I'll find someone to work with me a couple of weeks on it, and then we do the count and analyze. I remember once in the Sunday evening meeting of Rashid Mubarak, rahmatullah alayh. That's an intellectual meeting. They called the Hadiyah of Rashid. One Arabic linguist from Cairo, very sophisticated Arabic linguist, said one shocking result of the Quran when they tried to do such a count and compare with other people of literature, even with the Sunnah, they were shocked. They found 99% of it is using only 500 words. And say 500 is 550 words or roots. I don't know exactly what's it. This small number is just slightly 100 above what the symbols the highest monkey understand, chimpanzee. If the chimpanzee will get 100 more, they will join humans and understand. It is so simple that even a human who sank even almost to the level of the monkey can benefit from the Quran. That's a miraculous aspect in the opposite direction that you expect, for example. So we have no reason not to refer to the Quran itself for the meaning of words and the various meanings and various uses. And the miraculous aspects like da'ah, with all sometimes directly acting or via a preposition and so on, have 4 or 5 meanings. Dhikr has 5, 6 meanings. Hukum, ruling, has 5, 6, 7 meanings, etc. All related, attributing something to something, but it means sometimes the fundamental normative act of the divine. It means sometimes the deriving laws. It can be so. Then the problem of can human legislate and have legislative assemblies? Yes, they can, provided they extract the law from the principles of the revelation. Then it is not ruling with not without. It is ruling with what Allah has revealed, etc. But the Khawarij failed to understand and caused problems for themselves from that time by Ibn Abi Talib until now. But they didn't sit and scan the Quran. Where is Hukum is mentioned, and what's the Hukum meaning, and see what the context, and write just a list like we have in the Book of Tawheed. And so on. There's no excuse for that. With such a straightforward, easy to read, absolutely easy, extrantic Quran. Yeah, there are few ayahs and places are difficult, and so topics which by their own nature are very complex, like destiny, fatality, and freedom. These are deep issues. You can't do it with one ayah or one context. You have to summarize many things until you get the picture. Because this way, it's one structure, one of the most difficult to construct. That's the topic itself. Otherwise, most other topics are okay. And concerning the ayahs, except few very difficult ayahs to interpret and put historically, like the ayah of Harut Marut, some issues about magic. Later, we will get in tafsir to the issues with some amazing things about Sulaiman, etc., which need a little bit of really clear pondering. But the rest is clear. There's not very much clear. There's no big fight around it, provided you do an effort and synchronize the whole Quran. That's the condition. You cannot just take a half ayah and run with it. You will destroy yourself this way. Okay, long comment, but I think it is important. So for everyone who was present, read that again. You may have an improvement on it and make several suggestions. Write it down and give it to me so we improve what we have. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Also, if it's going to be for the Arabic stuff, just they can discuss whoever's on the Arabic side with you, because obviously, if it's going to go into the Arabic version of the book, yeah, I'm assuming pass it through on your Arabic channels. Yeah. Okay. So, because I often get asked, and I just don't get involved in the Arabic side of things because it's a void for me. I'm not equipped for the language. I'm not equipped to who's going to answer.
We'll find inshallah more solutions soon, because artificial intelligence is giving enormous help now in this direction. Now we have received in the last.
That's not my concern. My concern is this: for it to be, if it has to go into the Arabic, you have to have it has to be a process. For example, if it goes into English, we're not going to, the versions will be out of sync. It has to go into the Arabic first. After the Arabic is done, then we can worry about translation. But the point is that somebody needs to be a point of contact for the Arabic side. And that's definitely not me, because of not having the language.
Even translation has progressed enormously in the last 3-4 years.
I agree with that. But what's going to happen? You have English version being edited, and then the Arabic version that is out of sync. So what's that? Burn it. You have to have one point of truth, which is then translated as required.
Yeah.
And you need to have a person who's managing it as a project that goes nowhere. So I'm being brought into to pass this through, and I'm not getting involved in that because I know it's going to go out of sync. I don't start any project I can't do, or it's going to be a failure. So somebody on the Arabic side has to step up and say, I am doing this, and I'm going to incorporate this, and I'm the point of contact.
We'll get there.
Whoever that may be, they need to volunteer.
We'll get there, inshallah.
Inshallah. Cool. Anyways, brother wanted to ask something. Far away.
Jazakallah. Sheikh, Assalamu alaikum. And I have one question about this hadith. من أحيا أرضا ميتة فله فيها أجره وما أكلت العافية منها فهو له صدقة. وقال ابن أبي بكير من أحيا أرضا ميتة فهي له. Is that mean no landlords in Islam and all have general permissibility to own a plot to build even in urban cities and all that stuff?
No. This is the land which is not owned by anybody, like in the mountains, in the valleys, who revive that and turn it to, usually the reviving meaning that's not within a populated area. And there is a hadith has come in that. So when the Prophet announced that first time, he announced it most likely, it has to, the whole thing as we analyze more thoroughly, announced it as a head of state. He allowed the people to say, Adi al-Ard, the open land, is belonging to Allah and His Messenger, meaning to the community. That's the meaning, belonging to Allah and His Messenger. But he announced, whoever revive one, so the narrator said, then we ran out of Medina in groups and we try to mark pieces and so on so that we can develop them into for agriculture. And to encourage that, the hadith mentioned that even whoever he has the reward for reviving that land, and whatever income comes is belongs to him because he owns the land now. And also he has the reward, even the birds eat, everything eats and so on. So don't think it should be a waste because usually this will be far away and you cannot attend that like if it's near to the place, the old well-established pieces of land people have around their own villages and so on. It's a bit far away. Usually what people will do maybe once a year plantation and maybe rely on rain and or flood and so on and go and less frequently. So plenty of it will be eaten by bears and so on. So don't grieve for that because this will be a reward for you also. So you are feeding not only humans, you are feeding animals. But the issue of reviving land, is it for anyone going to the open space and encircling it and claiming to be owner without state permission or not, and who have the right to permit and so on, is a lengthy issue. But this is the gist of the matter, yeah? Just give you the gist.
Okay, what's the general permissibility in urban cities?
In
urban cities?
Yes, in outside spaces, not in the cities. This is usually the land is owned or it is public space like streets and so on. Nobody can put his hand on it.
Okay, if I remember correctly, some fuqaha said like in general you don't need to sell let's say a plot, but you can revive and take even if it is in cities. So
no, how do you revive it? It is owned with someone. If it is owned, it is not adil other. It's not an open land. It's owned by someone. That someone has neglected it maybe and not built on it. That's for obviously the community to arrange how to deal with this situation. Usually, because people have neglected to levy the necessary zakah and taxes on it, so there is no encouragement for the people to invest it and revive it for the owner. So he leave it there, hoping that in 100 years it may increase in price. That's not proper, but this is because the policy of management and the state policy after the time of Ali ibn Abi Talib has been always bad in this direction. Did not produce good tradition for the fuqaha to develop something from it. But this is an issue of management. We talk about reviving, that's something which is owned by nobody outside, in the mountains, in the valleys, far away. The open land, which is usually people regard as belonging to the state or to the community, is under the sovereignty of the state, but not owned by anybody. Yeah?
Okay, if let's assume in some countries, some people, even in big cities, some claim some places and they are not reviving, and it may be in there over 10 years, 1 decade. So
that's most likely the people claim that falsely. That piece of land is owned by someone who may have died, and nobody is tracing it correctly. It is not done properly. Then it falls back to the community and to the state or to the court or something like that. It's not a place of revival because it's clear if it's in the city, it belongs to someone before. How hard become it in the city? And it became vacant. In Mecca, we have plenty of these things, or some houses who started collapsing and so on, because someone from far away Indonesia or Senegal built them a century ago in the hope that he will come later and settle there and die in Mecca, but he could not do that, and nobody followed that correctly. But if you check back in those countries, you find the ownership deeds available. It has been done.
Would it make sense to give a practical example? I'll give you an example.
But the question of the brother is fundamentally if it's really unowned by anybody, or it was owned centuries ago and everyone died, like an old city which is defunct and become a ghost town in America, then there's no ownership or no traces. It became public again. Then you may think about reviving. But in America, nobody is applying Islamic law, nor the Messenger of Allah of a hadith. You have to check what's the law says there. In England, it's the so-called common law. Common law allow you, even if a house or something is not used and nobody is there for, and you occupy it for 10 years, then you can raise a claim and claim it for you by living there for 10 years and so on. There's a complicated things. You can check with the lawyer if you want to do that in England.
It's an example in Syria. What people tend to do is if they have the top floor of a building, so they have the place a fourth-story building.
That has nothing to do with reviving. That's something else. That's something else. Completely. It's reviving is a land in the forest, and you go and encircle, say this is my land, and turn it into agricultural facility.
So is this a divine injunction of based off of a state authority, or is this because why means that
it has to be studied more thoroughly, as I said, but I'm just giving you the headlines. It applies to land which is dead. Arda Maita is dead. Nobody owns it for centuries. Or owned it, like for example, the city of Saleh is dead. Nobody is there, and nobody went there to revive anything. It has been defunct because there's injunction not to live there and so on for whatever reason. But something like that, you pass in, like in America, there are many ghost towns. In the time of the rush to the west, they were towns and the people desert them. There's some building crumbling there, nothing remaining significant. And the pieces of land around this, obviously, one time, maybe 100 years ago, it was used for agriculture, but nothing is there. And maybe a well, a remainder of the well, which is defunct. That's a dead land. If Islamic law is applied in that area, you could go there and put your hand on that, encircle it, and then start an agriculture project, and then apply to the court to get a deed and all these things, depending upon what is the valid law there, if it would have an Islamic entity there. Most likely, there's no Islamic entity there, obviously, and they will apply common law. Check what the common law says there in America. And if necessary, go for a lawsuit to the courts. You see what I mean? That's the situation like that. Or just in far away between the mountains. Because most of the earth is owned by nobody. There are countries who are very dense, like in England, but still, if you get out of London, going, for example, to Northampton, there you will find like 5-10 miles to the right of that, going all the way to the forest. Does not seem to be owned by anybody. Few places you see that there's a radio telescope observatory and so on with a fence and so on. That's obviously belonging to the National Observatory or something like that, belong to the government. But other areas seems to be open. Actually, in England, it's not open. It's owned by some kind of a lord or marquis or duke or something. Centimeter is free available.
Yeah, there's a green belt, all these kind of injunctions.
England is completely gone over centuries. It's a country, but in America, it's not the case. Most mountains in Appalachian and Rockies and so on is open space.
Muslim countries, it can be owned by clans, or they just claiming this is our area, or I don't know.
Yeah, it can be debating upon what but most Muslim countries are not applying Islamic law, more or less. The situation is not clean, but in principle, if it's an Islamic entity, you can revive it. Unless the entity has enacted the law, you revive only with my permission and get a design, respect certain limits. Maybe they divide the whole country in quadrants and so on. You have to check those things from place to place. But in a simple situation, like in Medina, outside Medina was wide areas open, nobody owning them. Maybe animals are grazing in them, natural animals or farm or shepherds are grazing there, maybe from time to time. And the Prophet declared he want to increase agriculture, encourage this, and improve the economic level of Medina. And then he announced whoever revival, so they will come out running outside, and then we started and Qassim and divide and so on. And we added considerable properties to Medina. But Umar insisted that if someone takes something like that, he has to revive it and develop it, not just keep it with just walls. So Fuqaha say enough to have a wall around. There's not enough. Umar says not enough. After 3 years, if you have not, he take it back from you. Give it to someone who will revive it and invest in it. So there's various points of view of fiqh. That's a lengthy issue. That's a very important issue to be decided by the Shura in the future. Because the application in the past was never good after the time of Khulafa al-Rashidin. We have 1400 years of mess. Nowhere you can really reliably do anything. In the Arab Peninsula, there's some application here and there because it's very wide and scattered. There's plenty of open space. Most of it, 90%, 95% is still open. Yeah, you may have it. And still have been abused by princes and so on. And taking adjacent land to the cities and applying to the next council to have a plan there and divide it in pieces and sell it to the people. And the people wait 30, 50 years for it to develop further and so on. This is all not good. But this is because the public authorities are not really proper Islamic and caring about the interest of the Ummah. But this is another issue, a very complex issue. Yeah. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.
Yeah, that's it.
Inshallah. Right, we'll call it a day there then. So
A genuine answer for that will be only if an Islamic entity, an Emirates or Khilafah established, who is sufficiently open-minded, like for example, does not apply to Taliban or have a clear madhab in that direction, because I think Ja'fari do not have much in that direction, unfortunately. Taliban should have, as Hanafi, but they are muqallid, they are frozen on that level. I remember we wrote to them concerning currency, concerning common ownership and how to deal with minerals and so on. The response was not encouraging anyway, but maybe they will get there. We'll see. We have to start from scratch in all these things. The mess made by Umayyads, Abbasi, Fatimi, Uthmani, and so on needs some hard work to clean. Centuries of mess need to be cleaned. Need massive cleaning, unfortunately. And some areas have missed by colonialism, like Algeria, over 100 years, 130 years under colonialism, messed up distribution of the land, ownership, usurped land, gave land to people unworthy, took from the worthy ones and so on. Very messy. Needs some work. Anyway, okay.
okay, so next week, inshallah, 8 o'clock new time, we'll be on chapter 7, page 284.
Right, inshallah. So we conclude today. Alas, no more question.
Yep.
يا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد وبارك على محمد وعلى محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.